welcome back. We're looking at, we're on Module 3 now, and Module 3 covers the user management. So these next few modules will go over those 5 different areas that we discussed in the previous modules. So we'll just get straight into it. What is user management? Well, the main focus of a system administrator will be configuring access for the users to different areas of the Salesforce website, and then adjusting and reconfiguring the design so that your colleagues can use the portal more efficiently and more according to their roles and the business needs. The Learning Portal says that you should meet users and sit down with them and observe them to understand how they work. And then collect their feedback on the different areas that they use. Now, though this is nice, it's not always the case in real life. Typically, if a company that you're working for is moving the Salesforce, then the primary task in the beginning will be just to replicate whatever they have in their existing CRM, whether they're with Microsoft Dynamics or any of the number of other customer management database portals. But then if that's the case, you would sit down with your manager of the team that you're making changes for to discuss their needs and the ideas to make their team work better or well. Obviously, if they're moving platforms, it's in your best interest in the beginning to try and replicate everything, because then when they do move, everything will work as expected previously. And then, I would really advocate to have any new changes or any new additions to be done afterwards. That will really save you a lot of time. What can happen a lot with Salesforce or these CRMs in general is that someone will have an idea and they'll continue to modify their idea over time, and you'll essentially do 3 or 4 or 5 times the amount of work. So that's why we spoke about trying to be a project manager or as a product manager in the previous modules, because this will really help cut down on the amount of work you do by structuring changes in a way that makes more sense. So now, alternatively, if the company that you're working for has had Salesforce for a while and it's been up and running already, and maybe you're coming in as a new admin, at that point there's really no need to sit down with anyone. You'll pretty much be asked to make modifications to forms and flows to accomplish business needs as each day, week, month goes on. Design and customize user experiences. Though I do agree that your role will rely on observing how the website is used and communicating with managers and users on their needs, though typically you'll get complaints from your colleagues or the users about a specific area, or they're having difficulties using it in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes as you move forward, especially in the technical support area, if you're doing like the service desk, there will be new requirements that come on a regular basis. Maybe they're doing some calling campaigns, or they have new areas that they're monitoring as far as a data point, and so that'll come to your attention. So you'll take that feedback typically through like a service desk ticket, or maybe you'll talk to the manager in person, and you'll take that information and do a redesign to improve that area of the portal and try and make their life a little bit easier. Managing access via the permissions and the roles and the groups. So there's multiple ways of managing permissions. There's usually a hierarchy. At the bottom would be your profile, which is essentially your account for a specific person. And then you'd use roles and groups to manage the permissions um, over top of that profile. So just like when you log into social media, that login is your profile. So you can then assign multiple permissions to a role, which is like a category. That role is you'll assign those different profiles to a specific role, and that role holds the list of all the permissions to the different areas for that user. So for all roles, the list of permissions assigned to it is called a permission set. Now, and so it's very common, really, and usually easier for yourself, unless it's very common for businesses to create roles that are labeled based on the job function. So this keeps it really easy to correlate to real life. If you have a role that's assigned to a person based on their job function, someone else comes into that team, and it's usually best practice for creating new roles to, like, this is a new position within the company, or you're doing some testing, if you will. But it's usually best practice for creating new roles to always assign them a very limited list of permissions. Then, as time goes forward, you can expand those permissions to new areas of the portal and access to different areas that they, new data, if you will. So this is the best practice. This prevents you from uh, assigning permissions to someone that's too large and they're seeing things that they shouldn't have or that it shouldn't be. So if you have a new employee that you are adding to Salesforce and there's a role that's already created in the portal, just reuse the existing role for that person. And its idea, and on the topic of roles and profiles in general, it is ideal to always keep your roles and permissions cleaned up. Remove those roles which you don't use anymore. And then for the profiles, just deactivate those whenever. So when a person leaves, you want to deactivate their profile. This is standard procedure with IT administration as well. And this will free up any licensing that the business is using for that user and also prevent any authorized access to the company's information in the future. Adoption is the identification of an area and features that your Salesforce users are using. So adoption in general is, are they using the product? Are they using the area that you just created? Are they using the drop downs in the fields and filling out the different areas to the best of their abilities, to the best that, and when I say to the best of abilities, I'm referring to what does the company want, right? If someone's on a sales call, there's going to be specific metrics that the company wants in each of those, in the documentation for each of those calls so that they can track what type of call that was, what the status is of that call, what is the next step, who took that call. And in some cases, if you're using the App Exchange where you've added on additional products such as a phone system, some phone systems that actually have a Salesforce integration, you can actually track how long that call was for, and managers will be able to listen to those recordings as well. So as you create new designs, you will be creating reports to allow yourself to keep track of those areas of adoption, essentially. This way you can report back to management on whether or not those users are taking advantage of the ideas or the areas that was created or previous areas. So to make things a little bit easier for tracking and reporting of adoption, there's actually a built-in app that you can use to do auditing with. It's called OrgCheck. It was created by Salesforce, and it's usually good to run this once a month to identify areas which can be improved. But we'll cover OrgCheck more in depth later in this series. So a big part of your role, you're gonna being an admin will have a lot of visibility. So being able to communicate with stakeholders is really important. We've touched about in the past that some people work differently. Some people are more of an email communicator in comparison to an in-person communicator. You always see that within every organization. It's another meeting that that we didn't really need to be there for. That's because that person is probably more of a in-person type of communicator. So stakeholders typically will be managers or team leads or CFOs or C-suite and or even project leads. So because everyone works differently, it's my recommendation that you try and find out what works for them to be the most useful in your position. Try and make it a habit to discuss with your stakeholders in your projects or as you move forward, to identify what their needs are. And once you identify how they work, maybe they just need a quick email. They don't need to have a meeting. Or maybe they're a text, or maybe there's a group chat. But once you identify how they want to receive updates, then you can provide those updates. Also with stakeholders, it's over communication is usually a good trait to have. Most people will not complain if you're over communicating with them. In other words, you're checking in with them to make sure that any of the needs that they have on this project, changes that you're making, or reports or dashboards, checking with them on a regular basis to make sure that their needs have been met. The dashboards are making sense to them and providing them the data that they can be successful with. So, if they're happy, you're happy, right? So they won't be coming to you with emergencies, or they know they can rely on you if they feel that you're listening to their needs. Our last topic for this module, create a user guide or not. Salesforce has in this module that creating user guides are a great way to speeding up the training process for new employees. This is absolutely true. User guides can be really helpful for when you're training new employees or you're rolling out a new area of the Salesforce. You can use, but in what I would find better, and so that's the answer if you get a question around that is yes, you want to create guides and they are useful. Now, in my opinion, as an administrator, you can use native built-in Salesforce features like help text, the descriptions when you hover over a certain area, and in-app guidance to direct users on how to use those specific areas of the portal. Found this process is going to be most helpful for you. You can also use workflows to get data from people, which is required. again, going back to the sales aspect or a customer service type call, and I bring these up because Salesforce is used quite heavily in a help desk, customer service, and sales. So if you know the type of structure of the call that they're having, then so much easier. Just Mr. Miss Customer, this, type it in, this, type it in, this, drop down, and this also will get all the required data that the managers are looking for from that team. So that way, uh, you're not having to create how-to manuals, which I find are quite regularly ignored. And um, you may be asked to write how-to guides, but if you make it really easy in the portal, then you can dodge the boring documentation bullet, which requires you to essentially constantly make changes to this document on a monthly, quarterly, yearly aspect, which in my opinion is working smarter and not harder. So, um, when you first roll out a new area, you see this with IT projects all the time. They always want a how-to guide, but boy, you'll get so many questions um, on this area from the real user, the person who's literally doing the job. And I can't tell you how many times where I've said, "Did you look at the guide?" Like your question is like number one, right? It's like right at the top of the guide. You didn't even look at it. So save yourself save yourself the hassle. Try and convince the the business that you're gonna make. You just assure them it's gonna be as easy as pie, right? And when your users and look, it may mean doing a little bit more work in the beginning because you got to have all these tips and pop-ups and description. I get it. It'll be a little bit more work in the beginning, but I assure you that after the new area or the new section is modified or created, that when new employees come in, there won't be questions, right? It will just be so apparent and clear to them. And if that's the case, you did your job, right? That's a good job. Okay, so that's a quick section. Hopefully the next ones will be this quick as well. Let's go with the quiz. So, question 1, what actions should you take as you undergo the long-term project of reducing the number of profiles in your organization? A, get a buy-in from the stakeholders. B, create a plan to reduce profiles and switch to a permissions-led model. C, assign permissions based on the job titles, which makes sense. Or D, question A and B. So on this question, I think the key here is long-term way of reducing the number of profiles. The long term. So job titles are great, but I think there's more than one answer here, if you ask me. If you said D, A and B, you are correct. You always need to get a buy-in from the stakeholders, and though in my opinion, assigning based on job titles makes a lot of sense, and that's what you'll probably do in the real world. A permission-led model is essentially the same as C. So a job title will have a specific permission set, a list of permissions, if you will. So it's kind of a tricky question. Question 2. How can you ensure users have the access they need to Salesforce applications, features, and data? Is it A, create an individual profile for each user? Is it B, give all users an admin profile so they can do everything in Salesforce? Is it C, regularly meet with users to observe and collect feedback? Or is it D, ask users how they would solve challenges on the platform? If you answered C, you are correct. Regular meeting with users, observing and collecting feedback. That's the official answer. That is a great answer for if there's a new section and so on. If everything is, and this is great for new teams as well. But if you're already in a company that's been using Salesforce for a long time, then you'll probably just be making changes. So that's it for this lesson. Now, I can't think of another job role or, in the marketplace where you'd watch over your colleagues to help them do their job better. Can you? I mean, what is an example of a job you can think of which sits and helps your colleagues work better? I mean, all I can think of is maybe a trainer or a teacher. Um, I don't know. I mean, typically a trainer of a teacher would speak at the audience, but they wouldn't sit there and make changes. Um, I don't know. Let me know. Drop your answer in the comments below. We do want to hear from you. We want to know also, is there anything that we can do better? So thank you for watching. Please let me know if you found this video helpful with a thumbs up, and if not, thumbs down. If you gave us a thumbs down, let us know why you gave us a thumbs down. We can't do this without you, so please subscribe to get notified when new modules are released, and we'll see you in Module 4. Ciao!